far and wide, just exploring opportunities and things that really matter when it comes to your welfare or your well-being, if you say. And today we want to discuss something, a matter that, again, I believe we mentioned at one time, but it was not in this magnitude. We want to discuss matters, tenancy obligations or tenants obligations across the board. You there, you're a tenant. I want you to understand what is expected of you by both your host, that is the landlord, and also by the law. And you know, when it comes about, when we talk about law, we're talking about things that can be presented before a court of law for justification. Whether you're in the right or wrong, I believe that law will cut across board. And you know what? I've been joined by experts in these two fields, the law part of it and also the tenancy part of it. And I want to introduce gentlemen that have joined me today as we discuss tenants obligation. Welcome so much, gentlemen. I'm so happy and honored to have you on board. Before we start, first things first, you can introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do, and then we go to him.
Yes, right. It's a pleasure to be in this show.
Wow.
My name is Daniel Nyoro, founder and group CEO of Quantum Property Realtors.
Right.
We are real estate experts in regards to matters to do with the management,
right,
consultancy, buying, selling, and marketing. And right now, one of the things actually we focus more on is actually even consultancy.
All right.
Yes. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome so much. Next to you is a gentleman we know we love. Say hi and introduce yourself.
Good evening, our viewers. I'm Joseph Mugweru. I've not changed my name. We can say quote unquote resident advocate for the show. I'm glad to be here.
And we are so honored. You don't know what you mean to these viewers who are there and they are torn between where to go and where not to go when it comes to matters law and property law, that is. And thank you so much for honoring this invitation. Now, you there, you need to take a pen and a paper because things we're going to discuss are things that you'll be questioning tomorrow. And don't forget even to ask these things on our social media handles, that is the Realtor TV 47. Now, I'll start with you. When you talk about tenant, let us understand from your side who is a tenant.
A tenant.
Right.
The way we perceive a tenant is somebody who has taken up a premise, not necessarily the owner, but somebody who's taken up a premise owned by somebody else.
Okay.
So when you say tenant, is you're coming to take up this unit and to meet a certain obligation in regards to taking up this unit. Okay. This may require payment of a rent or exchange of a commodity or something that necessarily mean that I'm giving you this for a short while.
Sure.
Can be in terms of 1 year, 5 years, 3 months, and that is actually what actually makes a tenant, that you've actually been given there for a short stay. You're not the owning, you're only possessing it for a while, and also meeting a certain obligation for you to be there.
Okay.
Yes.
So those things have to be the obligation, you occupying and all that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mugweru,
yes.
What do the law dictate or what do the law say about who is a tenant according to law?
So a tenant is anyone, as our guest has said, that occupies and pays rent to either a property for them to be able to live in that. And by occupation, I mean, even if I'm to rent a very big house and place one stool in that house, I am in occupation of that. But why there is a difference between a tenant and a landlord is because the landlord has the ownership and the tenant has occupation. And at the end of the tenancy, the landlord will have both the ownership and occupation because it's his house or her house. That's where the difference comes in.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We have seen in some instances that people really don't understand what is expected of them. I'm a tenant somewhere. I come on board. I'm ushered by the managers or the agents into an apartment. What is expected of me from your side?
Yes. Now, as a tenant, if you come as a tenant, there are certain obligations put in across that you're supposed to meet. Now, some of these obligations may are financial obligations and also obligations to take care of the premise. And if I may state them, with you being there, correct me if I'm wrong, one can be you are obligated to ensure that you pay your rent on due time as written in the lease agreement.
Yes.
And by the way, before I continue, there is a guided lease agreement. There's an agreement that guides you as a tenant on what you're supposed to do as your obligation.
Sure.
So these obligations may differ from one person to the other. Mm-hmm. From one, what you call, they have two kind of tenants. Actually, right. You have controlled and uncontrolled. Mm-hmm. So these obligations change from one to the other. Mm-hmm. So in a place, you may be told you're obligated to pay your rent at a certain date, monthly, others is quarterly.
But there's this issue, and I'm coming to you, Bwana Wakili. There's this issue that you happening to be one of the agents happen to harass people on ground of maybe differing in terms of what the paper says, the lease agreement says, and what I'm able to do at a particular time in the month or in the year. How do you handle people who don't duly pay?
Now, for us as quantum property realtors, we don't like saying it's not harassment for us. For us, actually, is enforcing. Enforcing what I mentioned as a lease agreement. We have an agreement. We have an agreement.
No, don't twist us. Let's get it right.
Yes.
What's the difference between enforcing and okay, harassing may sound unkind.
Yes.
But you're talking about enforcing.
That.
Note this.
Yes.
Enforcing. Continue enforcing.
So I'm enforcing, and you have agreed you're going to pay your rent a certain date. On the same agreement, for those of our agents who are experts out there in the field.
Sure.
Of course, they have consulted our very able Akili here, advocate, and gotten a proper document that guides them and protects them.
Right.
So if you as a tenant, you're supposed to pay your rent by 5th, and you don't pay up.
Right.
I go back to the lease agreement, and it says what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
If the lease agreement provides for me, I'm supposed to charge you a penalty, I'm supposed to evict you, I'm supposed to distress you for rent. Now that our viewers usually view it as...
What do you mean by distressing me?
Distressing is a distress word is gotten from the act known as Distress for Rent Act. The Distress for Rent Act is a law, please correct me, that has been provided for to govern you as we as the agents, what you're supposed to do if you fail to honor your obligation of paying your rent or being a tenant there.
When I was doing research on matters that really matter when it comes to tenants' obligation,
yes,
I had to go through several lease agreements, what we may call, the tenancy agreements, and none of the clauses I found dictating or giving you the privilege as an agent of locking my house. And I believe this is one of the things people would be waiting to hear about, locking of houses by agents when I don't meet my obligation.
Yes,
I'm coming to that. Wakili,
yes.
What is distress according to law?
So distress for rent is a right that is given to the landlord,
right,
to make sure that they collect their rent in case the client is in default. What do the tenant is in default? What do I mean by distress? Distress for rent is there is a process for the same.
Right.
You cannot just come into my house and say you want to distress for rent. Actually, distress for rent, if you look at it as a landlord, that is the surest and safest way to get your rent paid in.
Right.
When the tenant falls in arrears, there is a process for distress. First, as a landlord, I have to issue a notice to the tenant,
right,
informing them that you have failed on your responsibilities to pay rent. Kindly note that I'm going to distress for rent. That is, I will come into your house. So after that, when I inform the client, the tenant that,
right,
the next thing is for me now to instruct auction.
And by any chance, Wakili, do the law dictate, does it stipulate the timelines at which I should receive the notice, and of course when should the notice be effected? Most
land distress are given between 14 to 30 days. You cannot just issue me with a distress for rent notice and expect me to work on it immediately.
Right.
That will be, and it is a procedure that is not recognized in law. So you just give a 14 to 30 days.
Right.
And at this juncture, that is why I say it's very important to consult an advocate who's going to help you with the whole process. So after you issue that notice, you can actually issue that notice. If you are not able to find the guy, right, or your tenant, you can just slide it into the house. You will get it. So after those 14 days or 30 days that you've granted to your tenant, the next thing is to look for licensed auctioneers.
Oh, not these licensed auctioneers. So, and I'll be coming to that to know how do I identify as a tenant and maybe someone who has failed to meet the obligation. How do I identify and distinguish between a fake, if there is any, and a licensed auctioneer? Now, Mr. Daniel, kindly let us understand, when it comes to tenancy and all that, maybe in a nutshell, what is the safest way of a tenant to ensure that I don't go to the extent of maybe getting the the measures enacted on me? What is the safest way of making sure that our lapo is okay and it's good?
Yes, it's a good question, that one. It's actually one of the things we actually train on our tenants.
Right.
One, the main thing is communicate. Communicate to your letting agent. Communicate to your property managers.
Wow.
And this means also communicating in the grounds. Which are don't wait for you to be late and on default of rent for you to communicate. Because then I'll be enacting or I'll be implementing on my actions which are being taken as harassment.
Right.
So communicate early. If you're supposed to pay your rent on 5th, communicate earlier before 5th.
Right.
Say this and this has happened. And please put it on paper or somewhere that is under record.
Right.
For example, for us in our Quantum, we always advise our tenants to communicate via email.
Right.
If you're not able to access email, do a text or communicate via a letter and bring it and literally have it received in the office. Yes.
So by the time I communicate early, what gonna you do? Will you advise me on what is the resolution when it comes to such? I'm communicating on time. How do you really help your tenants?
Yes. Once you communicate, of course, there are guiding principles and policies which have been put in place for the company. Right. And one of the things we actually will lead you is we'll understand, first of all, the situation. What you call being empathetic and understanding this, because these are human.
MBN?
Yes, we'll understand. We'll literally put you. We literally want to understand what has made you or what is make you default in this season. Once you understand, is now we are going to advise you on best way how to remedy and even give you another term for you to pay. You can extend your days even to the end of the month.
Right.
Yes, it depends on the situation again. If you tell me, oh, my salary, I received a letter from my employer telling me that he's going to pay me this month, not as the earlier stated 3rd, but he's going to pay on 15th, we're going to allow that. And of course, everything comes with proof. As I said, put it on email. So even that letter we need to see. Yes. Because again, I'm tied by the landlord to ensure that the rents are received on time.
They are received on time.
Yes.
I'm coming to that, and we're going to advance this because Wakili, you've said you can sneak a notice, and you don't know where there are mice in my house, and perhaps else they are far away. I will come to understand how do you make sure that that notice is served as a proof that I saw the notice and all that. Our time is fast moving and fast rushing, and thank you so much for keeping it here. I believe these are matters that concern you as a tenant, especially because we are talking about tenants' obligations when it comes to your occupancy to someone's space. And we are joined by one real estate agent, at the same time an advocate. Don't go away, because after this short break, we shall be right back with more.
Did you know you can live in your home in Juja Farm and work in Nairobi CBD? Or are you in the diaspora and looking for a suitable place to build your home? Leeds Property Solutions is making this a reality. With a cash prize of 580,000, own a plot at Leeds Gardens or pay a deposit of 200,000 Kenyan shillings and the balance in 4 months. These plots have ready individual title deeds and only 15 minutes from Thika Superhighway along the newly tarmacked Juja Farm Road. For site visit our office in Ruiru Town or call us on 0792 161 099 or visit our website www.leedsproperty.co.ke. Leeds Property Solutions, your investment pointer. You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Hey! Kaluma King Herbal Lozenges zinazo nguvu maradufu kutuliza kikohozi, vidonda vya koo na mafua. Kaluma King ni shwari. Tika mama huyo muharifu kaiba kuku zangu, vifaranga wangu na mayai zote pia kabeba. Haya, tika mama huyo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Thank you so much and welcome. This is the Realtor, and I love what is happening here today because your concerns, as I've said, they are taken care of. We are looking into obligations that are yours as a tenant, and of course that cannot go without mentioning what the landlords or the property owners have to do when it comes to your obligations as the occupant of their developments or their structures, their flats, their apartments. And I'm joined by these two gentlemen. Before we went for the break, Bwana Wakili, we talked about you serving a notice through sneaking it under my door. I'm not there. I don't know much. Then after the elapsing of the stipulated time, then here comes auctioneers. Yes. Kindly. How do you bring auctioneers to my space without me knowing it, since I've not seen this notice?
I have already issued you with a notice.
Right.
And
in this case, I've not seen it.
Then it is assumed you have abandoned your dwelling place.
Oh.
Then the other option is after auctioneers come in, after in case maybe they come to your house and get you,
right,
they will do what it say, will take an inventory of what is in the house. But I have to remind these auctioneers, you should not take anything that the tenant chooses as a tool of business. Let's say you have a laptop there and I show that this laptop,
right,
I do business with it. The auctioneers should not have that in their inventory. After they take their inventory, they are giving me another 14 days where they will now come and take your property and use it, sell it through a public auction and pay.
Remember, Akili, I've not seen this notice, so you don't know what is used to me as a tool of... There's a woman there who serves, her business is selling mandazi, and she uses the cooker, and how do I prove that that's my tool of business?
It is the cooker that I used to cook mandazi with. So as long as I tell you this is my tool of trade, I do a mandazi business,
right, and
this is what I cook with, it should not enter into the inventory.
Right.
That is a tool of trade, and an auctioneer.
And remember, this particular time, the tenant is not there to show or to tell what is their tool of business or otherwise.
Again, an auctioneer cannot just get into your house.
Right.
If you're not accessible and you have abandoned your house, then the only other option they have is to go to court and ask for break-in orders.
Okay.
So for a break-in order, when you get that, you have to take it to the OCS in charge of that area.
Right.
And the OCS will send an email most likely to the court that issued it for it to confirm it. After that, the OCS or his officers will take you there.
Okay, hold it, because you're coming to the rights. I still feel on behalf of these watching us, and of course, I'm not advocating for defaulting your responsibilities. Mark me right. I just want to make sure that your rights are well put in light so that you can understand. We're coming to the rights of myself as a tenant. Mr. Daniel, we're talking of, now the auctioneer is here. How do you quantify, because you have instances whereby what you take does not match in any way, it's far above my areas. How do you quantify my items from the house to match what you demand?
No, first of all, I'm a real estate consultant.
Right.
So what we do, we hire a qualified, licensed, under the jurisdiction where I'm operating, where the premise is, a licensed auctioneer.
Right.
A licensed auctioneer comes, if they are valuers, because the law only gives valuers the right to value that thing.
Right.
So if they are valuers, they'll be able now to value the property or the distrainable good. Very well put, Mr. Wakili.
Right.
So once they value, for me, is I've given the jurisdiction to the licensed auctioneer, and then I pay back, I stay back. Of course, I went to the advocate,
right,
who is the one who drafted the notice, to the tenant, and to the auctioneer. Of course, through my authority,
right,
appointing the advocate. Please do this for me. So once they do that, the values are due and they are proclaimed now. We are now the 14 days.
At no one time that my value or the value of whatever I have in the house is attached to the rent I pay. Let's assume in the event I pay 50,000, I've defaulted for 3 months, that's 150,000, 150,000, and what is in my room for this case is just my bed. What do you do?
No, that is what we do if it's only one bed.
Yes.
The other revenues...
Worth 23,000.
Worth 23,000. Yes. And the other revenues of doing the same. Of course, that now requires I get a consult from the Wakili here, who will tell me there are other things maybe could be attached to the property. There could be a car you own, of which, of course, I'll go to NTSA, confirm that it's yours, the value of the license auctioneer now. So there are many things that you can attach to the
So by this, Daniel, you mean we go far and beyond, we can get outside the confines of my lease?
Yes.
Because there's no way my car is captured in your lease agreement. It does not live in your house. So, but you see, how is it related?
If I may interject, if you get a bed worth 23,000 and there is the 150 rent,
right,
the only other option is for you to move to court and claim for breach of contract.
Right.
And that should be done within 6 years. So that means if the breach of contract happened in 2016,
right,
within 6 years, which is 2022,
right,
I should be in court. After 2022, I should not be in court because there is what we call the doctrine of lapse of time. That is when I get those orders. Now I can go after your car,
right,
I can go after your land, I can go after anything that is attached to your name.
So those tenants who have this tendency of escaping from the premises, in that there's nothing that can be auctioned, they are still not safe.
Yeah, you're not safe.
Unless you are past 6 years since the last.
Yes, you're not safe. Landlords have rights as you have.
Okay.
Pay rent, that's all.
You've mentioned about rights, and this is
Yes.
very important. And I don't know whether to start from you, but let me start with him so that you can tell us the legal aspects when it comes to this. What are the rights as a consultant and at the same time an agent? What are the rights of a tenant?
The rights of a tenant, these rights are protected, of course, by also the law and the lease agreements. And that's why one thing we actually mentioned.
Yes.
Is always read your lease agreement as a tenant and understand it, what your rights.
They say devil is in details.
In the details, exactly. So the rights of a tenant is a quiet enjoyment of the property and the access to the premise as well.
Right.
And many other things like the right to get, what we call the utilities. These are power, water, all things which are attached to that property. Everything that you signed up for that you get for the premise.
Sure.
You signed up, you get water. You signed up, you get power. You signed up, you get a quiet, serene environment, security.
Right.
And these are what we call amenities of the building.
Sure.
Yes, that I attach a lift to this building. That I'm paying for a service charge that has a lift.
Oh, you've mentioned about access to the facility.
Yes.
The moment you lock my house in that I've not paid, you've not served me the notice, because we have thousands who are watching and they are victims of this. Where is my right and what should I do in the event my house, I've just defaulted that 15 days from time stipulated, and now you have locked my house. Where is my right at that particular time?
In our quantum, we don't lock houses because, first of all, it's a legality. However, it's a law that is like to be banned by most agencies or property managers, because once I lock your house, there's nothing much you can do apart from going to the rent tribunal if you're a control tenant. And the only thing they will tell me is instruct me through, of course, the legal ways and tell me to open your house.
And because you didn't go to the legal before you locked it,
yes.
What if I break into it now?
If you break into it, the reason why most agents, not our quantum per se, our quantum property realtors, most agents love to create that discomfort.
Right.
I'm locking your house. I'm literally, it's like I'm repossessing what I have, which is not the right way of repossessing material.
Right.
It's not the right way, because I'm supposed to come and give you an eviction and tell you I want my house back.
Right.
But the reason why is the agent locks, those who lock. Is because to create that discomfort.
Right.
So you're at work or you're somewhere and you know I cannot access my bed. I cannot access my...
So in other words, what you're saying that it's just a way of, outside the law, just within your relationship with your tenant,
yes,
just a way of triggering, you need to do this and this.
Yes.
You have breached what we agreed.
Yes, and something else I need to, which I know Akili here may interject. If you signed up for a lease agreement that says one of the remedies that I'll do is locking your house, and you signed up to it, being a legality.
Right.
You're in for it, honestly.
Wakil, I want to take this. I want to get this, because before you come to that locking, because I believe most people are victims of this. Wakil, is this a clause mostly hidden in the lease documents and lease agreements that stipulates if I default paying on 15th of every month, I should pay with a top up of about 10 or 20% on top. I pay 20,000 my rent, so I should pay 22,000. How legal is that?
I don't think, in my opinion, that is, I can just equate it to obtaining. It's an illegality. You are not a bank.
Yes.
You have no business of charging interest.
Right.
As an agent, just do what you are supposed to do. Distress for rent.
Right.
Go for an eviction order, or exercise your right of forfeiture as a landlord. But at no given time under the law are you allowed to charge interest.
But for him, he will say that you signed to it.
No. As I always say, you cannot sign into an illegality.
Okay.
I will not sign for people to kidnap me and ask for lump sum, you know.
So at the end of the day, you coerced me to sign something that will favor you.
No, guys. I said, please read your agreement and understand. That's the first thing I told you as a tenant.
But you see, Daniel, truth be told, thousands are out there and they are like, people who really don't understand legal matters. And you see, people will fix them based on that. Because someone will coerce me in courts to sign an agreement because I'm in need of a space.
Yes.
But again, someone who is paying 20,000 has no room per se to hire an advocate to go through this.
Yes.
You see, so somehow that clause was sneaked into my signature, blindly. How do you balance this?
Now, I'll be very honest with you. The devil is in the detail, as you said. Mm-hmm. If you ask me, I've never read the Constitution.
Sure.
Yet, I'm supposed to act according to the Constitution. So, for example, I'll ask a very good question about penalty on arrears, or what you call interest on arrears.
Right.
If I've given you a premise, and I've told you, I want you to pay this premise at a certain date. Me as a landlord, the developer, I probably engage the services of a bank to get a loan to make this, to actually build this premise. Okay. You have breached that, and now I'm suffering an interest because of you, or a penalty because of you. I think according to law, I have the right to pass that.
No, you cannot pass something that you have agreed with another third party in a contract. We call it privity of contract in law. Because at the end of the day, don't forget, what if that house was not occupied? Would you still be paying that interest?
That is why it's a tenant.
Yes, so that is why I'm saying, even if the devil is in the detail, there is something that is coming up called informed consent. I know why I'm signing this.
Yes.
Secondly, you're not a bank. Why are you charging me interest?
Good question. Now, I'm charging you interest because in our lease agreement, there's a clause you call in indemnification.
Right.
And you're actually discussing with Akili before he came on set. And one of the things we are discussing is, we have a clause in the lease agreement. And I'll tell you why for us, it is a legal way.
Right.
It's illegal. It's because you have a clause that states, if we suffer or be suffered a loss,
right,
or an interest because of your stay there, we shall pass that to you.
But you see, whatever you signed was different from what I signed. No. They are not in any way conjoined. I didn't know what, gentlemen.
No, it's in the lease agreement you signed.
Time wait for knocking. And I'm really so sorry to cut you short because this is a discussion that we're going to further. And I would call this part A of a discussion.
Yes.
And thank you so much for keeping it here. This is the Realtor. And what then we've laid a foundation of understanding what you're supposed to do. And now we are coming to rights, what the law dictates or stipulates when it comes to you as a tenant. And this is just but a mention that we're going to advance this and talk much because Mr. Daniel is here, Bwana Wakili is here. We're going to further this for your benefit. Thank you so much for keeping it the Realtor. Any question directed to our social media handle, that is a Facebook page, The Realtor TV 47. And this